Welcome to the Heal Your Hunger Show, where we get to the heart of why you overeat and how to stop. If you struggle with food and weight like I did, welcome home. Welcome to the Heal Your Hunger Show. So happy to have you here. It is a great day to be alive, and I'm super excited to be recording this in a live space on Facebook, in a Facebook group called The Secret Sauce to End Emotional Eating. And if you're in the Heal Your Hunger tribe, you automatically belong to The Secret Sauce. So welcome. Make sure to jump in there. The name has changed, so you might have to search The Secret Sauce to End Emotional Eating. But you might just go to the little thing on the side if you've marked the group, and it'll still be there. I'll just have a different name. But if you have not joined us in the Secret Sauce group, please do that. Just type in The Secret Sauce in Facebook, and the group will come up. Request to join. Now you don't have to answer any questions to join. If you want to join, we want you there. So I don't think anybody who's not an emotional eater or doesn't struggle with food and weight would really care. So we're just going to say, come on in. So please do that. Make sure to go to The Secret Sauce to End Emotional Eating. Now, this is a really exciting topic for me, and that's why I wanted to do it live on Facebook, because it means so much to me, and it's so important, and I just can't wait to share it with you. And that is my time in prison. Yes, I have spent 2 days in prison. I did not stay overnight. They let me out each day at the end of the day, thank goodness. But it was an incredibly powerful and impactful experience for me, and had so many lessons for me that have enriched me, deepened my soul and my understanding of humanity and of myself and of God. And it was just so powerful that I really felt the need to share it here, because I think there's a lot to learn from my experience and that I want to share. And it definitely correlates with the experience of emotional eaters. And the reason why I say that is because, as an emotional eater, I had a lot of fear, and I had a lot of fear of people. And this experience of going to prison, and I'll explain why and how and wherefore around that in a second. But, having a lot of fear and a fear of people and feeling disconnected from the world because of my eating behaviors and the shameful things I did around food, eating out of the garbage, if I'd thrown my binge foods out and then later decided to renegotiate that decision, I'd retreat from the trash. I'd sit on the couch and binge. I'd feel very embarrassed and shameful about my eating behaviors, certainly about my weight. So all those things made me feel disconnected from the world, from my fellow humans. And that sense of disconnection fueled my eating. So it's a vicious cycle. We have this compulsion to eat, partially because we feel lonely and disconnected. We eat, and then we feel more lonely and disconnected, and like we're holding secrets, and we are as sick as our secrets. So that really, that experience has to be healed. Like I have to get to where I feel more connected with my fellow humans, men and women. And in order to do that, I have to heal those parts of me that make me think I'm so bad. And that's partially what I did when I went into this prison. Is it helped me heal even deeper. I don't ever consider myself done. I think I always have more healing to do. It's a lifelong journey of healing. And so I got to heal, and I also got to assist others in healing. And that just made me feel more at one with my fellows, and more safe and secure. Isn't that funny that I came to a feeling of more safety and more security in my life on account of being among some of the most dangerous and some would consider vile people in the world on account of the acts that they've done. They're not vile by any stretch of the imagination, but they have created some pretty heinous, acts. And so that's where I deepened my feeling of safety, is among such people. And I want to explain more how that came about. So what I was doing here is I was part of a program called Hustle 2.0, and I've heard a woman speak twice now. Her name is Kat Hoke, and if after describing this experience, it's something that you're interested in becoming a part of, please reach out to me on Facebook or email me. And I will share more about how you can become a part of this, because it's so impactful. And I'm going back. So I plan on going back to the prison. But Kat, was in the investment banking world, and then somebody invited her to be a part of a program in prison, and she had a lot of judgments about the inmates, a lot of judgments about what they'd done. Really, was not open, but she did reluctantly go. And on account of that, it transformed her life. And she just, from that point on, just thought, I have to be part of this. I have to make a difference for these people. And she quit her investment banking job, and she launched full bore into helping people who are incarcerated. And she's been doing that for 15 years. And her most recent, version of that is Hustle 2.0. And what she does, and what she's been doing for years, it's just been through various programs. What she does is she helps people who are incarcerated use their hustling skills. They are hustlers. There's no question about it. As are many of us, me included. If there's something I want, you can bet I'll hustle to get it. But I don't mean doing illegal things, but I get real determined and real focused on what I want at certain points in my life. And I'm amazed at what I can get done when I'm in that mode. So these guys are hustlers, and they've been hustling on the streets, selling drugs, certainly stealing, causing harm, being in gangs. So they learn how to survive on the streets, and they are hustlers. And she teaches them to use those skills, those hustling skills, which aren't necessarily bad, but when you refocus them to something good, like becoming an entrepreneur, there's amazing things that can happen. So they use their hustling skills to hustle in the business world. And so she teaches them entrepreneurial skills and helps them foster their dreams of becoming business owners, and help them develop businesses that are viable, and give them a sense of purpose. And if they are getting out, if they're set to get out of prison, it gives them, something to work towards and work on, and that can, be a viable means of employment for them, so that they aren't resorting to their old ways when they get out. Because so many of these people in prison, they don't know anything else, and there's not a lot of support for them changing their ways. There's more support than ever, I will say, and they admit that. Some of these guys have been in there for 10, 20, 30, one guy over 40 years. And they have seen a big difference in the prison system, at least in California. I was in a California state prison, and they definitely attest to the fact that there are more services, there are more ways of learning how to, gain skills and be able to have viable employment out there in the world when they get out. And that's part of what we were doing there, is to help them, we helped them with their interviewing skills. We did some role playing around interviewing for jobs. We looked over their resumes and made, edits. And then we listened to their business plans because they've developed business ideas and plans. So it's really cool, really, really cool. It was 2 days. We were servicing a different yard each day. So it was the same program. It's a one-day program that we did at 2 different yards. The first yard, there were about 50 or so men. The second yard, there were about 75, maybe 100 men, actually, about 100 men. And the volunteers were 27 of us. So the first day, we had a ratio of about one volunteer to 2 incarcerated. And then the second day, we had 1 volunteer to 3 incarcerated. And we did these exercises where it was me and 3 guys. The second day, me and 2 guys the first day. So you can bet I was nervous going into this thing. I had no idea what I was getting myself into. I really had no idea what it was. I just believed in this woman. She's such an amazing, extraordinary, passionate woman about what she does. She's only 43 years old. She sews clothes in her free time. She's quite eccentric. She does some kind of martial arts as well. She does this work. Her nonprofit is something she co-founded with her ex-husband, so they're best friends. She's very transparent about her own foibles, the things she's done in her life that she's not proud of. And part of her message and her TED Talk, she's done a TED Talk, as well. Her message is really, should we judge people by their worst moments? And that's really the soul of what she's doing, is even though we're teaching business skills and helping these people become, employed or self-employed when they get out and have a purpose and really, develop and hone skills, the deeper message is, you are forgivable. We owe it to these people to give them a second chance. We all deserve second chances, even people who have done heinous things, and they're human beings, they're children of God. So that's the deeper message. And that certainly was a takeaway for me. But you can bet I was nervous going in. So the beautiful thing about Kat is she makes it really fun. So I went there, there's all these, specifications about how to dress, and that screws me up because I love clothes and I love to dress. Each morning I just, I feel like my clothes are my palette, my palette of paints for the canvas. And, but they're like, you can't wear blue, you can't wear gray, you can't, women can't wear anything above the knees, no short sleeve shirts, nothing with a V-neck. I mean, all these things. And, in the morning, my artistic, creative sensibilities are completely curtailed when I'm trying to, I had to read that email over and over and over again, because I'm like, these are way too many rules for me for getting dressed in the morning and packing. So I figured it out. And so we're showing up there and had no idea what I was getting myself into, but she makes it so fun. So throughout the whole experience, there's a lot of dancing, there's a lot of wooing, and woo. And the guys in the prison were so excited to have us there. They were probably more nervous than we were. So we did this meet and greet. We're all shaking hands and asking questions to each other about what we're excited about or what we're passionate about. It was a lot of, they're learning to interact. Some of them, unfortunately, some of them have spent years in the hole, in solitary confinement. And that came up during some of the exercises. And that broke my heart, I have to say. That was the only time during the 2 days that I choked up and cried, sobbed one day when she was asking, them to step forward if they've been in solitary confinement. And then she counted the years, and the people who, left standing were the ones longest in solitary confinement. And that just breaks my heart to think of any human being in a cage with no contact, no human contact, except being delivered meals and through a little slit in the door. So no windows, no nothing. That was really tough for me. But anyway, they're there, and they're not in solitary confinement if they're at, part of this program. They had to apply to be a part of this program. So, they don't just get put in it. They have to apply, and they have to meet requirements, and they have a curriculum, a Hustle 2.0 curriculum. They have several books, as they raise money, Hustle 2.0 raises money. They're able to print books for these guys, and they have a curriculum. So they have to pass, certain milestones in order to be there on that day with the volunteers experiencing what we experience. So it's very special. Their enthusiasm is so great, and they want to be there. They want to change their lives. They want to learn and grow and ask questions of us and gain from our experience. So the energy was so high, and Kat keeps it high with incredible music. She's got, one of the guys who works for the nonprofit is, he's become she put him on whatever, DJ skills or whatever, and he's become somewhat of a DJ. So he choreographs and the music throughout the day. We do a lot of dancing, like between each exercise, we're up on our feet, dancing, jumping up and down, high-fiving. The women can't hug the men, vice versa. We're not really allowed to touch except for high fives and handshakes. Other than that, that's it. So the men volunteers can hug the men, but the women not, for obvious reasons. So there are really a lot of strict rules which work. It makes it all flow. And it was just a great experience, but we went deep in many ways, and learning about them, them bringing forth things that they're ashamed of, and what really struck me is, Most of them that have been there for several years, they've come to a place of real regret for what they've done. I think sometimes at the beginning they're tough, they're afraid, they're defensive, and perhaps not as in touch with, the ramifications of what they've done, and the lives that they've, negatively impacted. But as they've been there over the years, which most of them had, you could really feel their regret. You could really feel that they, are sorry for what they've done. They're sorry for the lives that they've impacted. They're very sorry that their families have been impacted so negatively, that their moms, oh God, they're all so connected, to the shame they have around disappointing their parents, their family members, and especially their mothers. Some of them didn't get to go to their mother's funeral, and that brings them much pain. So there was definitely a softening of their hearts, and that's what made it so special too, is that they were really in a place of regret and a desire to change their lives. And so they were so hopeful, to have us there, and very transparent about the things that pained them. And she had us do exercises where that stuff came out, not just them, but for us. We had to share with them things that we were sorry for, things that we'd done, some of our worst moments. That was required that we share that. I mean, not required, but she encouraged us in these certain exercises, we each share. And so, I didn't have the kind of bad stuff they had to share, but I certainly, it doesn't matter, because we all have things we feel regret about, and sorry for. And so I shared some of those things, and they were so sweet. The guys I met with, they were so sweet and so compassionate, and just appreciated my vulnerability. So this is the kind of thing we did. It was we went deep fast. It was very, very sweet. And then we did an exercise where people, really reveal where they come from, like what their childhood was like. And this, I think, partly was for the purpose of helping the volunteers understand, the sort of the experience of people in prison, and how so many of them had like very little chance of doing anything different than what they did. The difference between the volunteers' lives, our lives and our childhoods versus the guys who were in there. Most of these guys in the California State Prison were gang members. Okay. They grew up in the East LA and San Diego, and they were in gangs. Sometimes their parents were in gangs, and they grew up in the gang violence. Most of them had, they were in neighborhoods where there was gunfire on a regular basis, and they became numb to that. They didn't have books. She asked a question about, were there 50 or more books in your home? And like nobody in prison had an experience of living in a home where there were 50 or more books, and everybody who was a volunteer had 50 or more books in their home. So you see the difference. There's so many, things that were so different about their lives. No stability. Oftentimes they didn't have one of their parents or either of their parents. Many times their parents were killed in drug deals or gang violence. They all of them had lost somebody in gang violence or had been murdered. Like she asked a question about who had experienced, the murdering of somebody close to them. They all had. So their reality was so different from our reality as volunteers. And it really drove home, just how we grow up does matter, and it does impact the choices that we make, and it's so easy to judge people in prison and, to say they're scum, or they're bad people, or they're evil or whatever. But you got to look also, not to excuse their behavior by any means, but to just look at the context in which they made the decisions that they made. And so often, most of the time, the cards were so stacked against them. And that just really broke my heart. And it made me realize just how incredibly blessed I am. So blessed to have grown up the way I did. I really had a good upbringing. I didn't want for anything. I had good education, very loving parents. No violence. I really had it good, compared to even people who are volunteers. So, but it drives it home when you see how little some of these people had, and how as children, I mean, some of them were arrested at such a young age. Some of them were arrested starting at 6 years old, 6, 7, 8, 9. Can you imagine putting handcuffs on a 6-year-old? And that just engenders that behavior when they're in that system being treated in a certain way, that becomes their consciousness, that they're bad and they're going to do bad. And it just becomes, just an expected thing. And they expect it of themselves, and then they carry that out. So I learned a lot, about that. It just really drove it home for me. Another thing that was so powerful is that when we did these exercises, it was just me and 2 guys, or me and 3 guys, and we all were in a circle. So each of us were sitting with 3 guys in all around a big circle. It was like in a gymnasium type room that we were in. But when we were getting real transparent, honest about experiences, and especially because the women can't hug the men, there's a lot of communication with your eyes, and it really was powerful to look in the eyes of these men and to communicate love to them. Like, it was so clear to me that these are little boys who didn't get the love they needed and were lost. They were lost, and therefore they joined gangs, and they lived that rough gang life just for a sense of belonging. And to look in their eyes and to have to really try to express love to them. Like, I went in there, I don't have great entrepreneurial skills. I haven't been an entrepreneur my whole life, but so I wasn't sure how much I could give to them along those lines. A lot of the volunteers were entrepreneurs or had been entrepreneurs. Not all of them. Some were teachers. Some were, were in the corporate world. But I knew that even if I didn't have really great entrepreneurial advice for these guys, I knew I could love them. I knew I could bring love, and that was my commitment, they need love. And sure enough, looking in their eyes, I just did all I could to bring love and to love them and to give them reassurance and validation, because they need it so bad and they're not getting it. Sometimes a lot of these guys don't have family coming to visit anymore. The families have given up because these guys are in there a long time. And so to have somebody there listening to them, validating them, and just letting them know that they're good, and they're forgiven, was so, oh my God, so powerful. And isn't that what we all need? Even if we did get, I got a lot of validation as a kid, but I still it didn't come through in translation. I grew up feeling bad about myself. I had low self-esteem. I hated myself because of the secrets I held onto. I was sexually abused as a child, from a relative. And, that made me feel dirty and bad about myself. I felt bad about my sexuality. So I carried darkness as well. And, in spite of getting validated by my parents and loved by my parents, I still wasn't getting it. So imagine these guys who didn't get any validation from anywhere except maybe gang members. They needed a lot of love. And so it's just amazing how much love we need, how much love and validation we need, and how good it feels to give it. I also want to talk about forgiveness, because this came up as well in my group. There was one guy who had murdered somebody. A lot of them had murdered probably in gang violence. I had so much love for these guys, but I think partly the fact that they'd been in gangs made it easier to love on them, because it was clear that they didn't have a chance. Had I been in there with a different kind of, person, or mass shooter or a rapist or whatever. And I don't know the whole story of what these guys had done, but a lot of them were, a large number of them were from gang, they'd murdered during gang violence and drug dealing and that kind of thing. And I do recognize that I might have been a little limited or more limited in my capacity to love and give had I known the whole story, or had I been in a different group of people who had done some even more heinous things, I guess. But nevertheless, I start where I start, and I was with these guys, and I really, was amazed at how they don't forgive themselves. So one guy said to me, he was this Asian guy, and he had murdered, and he, he was already in there 15, 20 years, young. These guys come in there young, like they come to prison with life sentences sometimes, or life with the possibility of parole, or some of them life without the possibility of parole. They come in there at like 16, 17, 18, 19 years old. So, I mean, they're still young, and they've been there 20 years. And that was the case with this guy. And, he said, Kat was asking a question about forgiveness. Can you forgive yourself? And he said, no. And she said, what would happen if you did forgive yourself? He said, I am afraid I would do it again. So his sense of, condemning, a self-condemnation, he felt like was building a fence and keeping him from doing the acts again. And what he didn't understand, and what I tried to explain to him, is that if he were to forgive himself, he wouldn't carry that with him. Because when we carry things, thoughts held in mind produce after their kind. What we think on grows. If we're holding energy of self-condemnation about something, we're holding energy about that thing. And so, not that will compel us to do it again, but I try to explain to him that if were he to free himself with self-forgiveness, it wouldn't mean that he'd go do it again. The fact that he's worried about doing it again means he's already a different man. The fact that he so desperately doesn't want to do it again, and therefore doesn't want to forgive himself, means that he has changed. He is a different man. And I just try to explain how that freedom, that freedom of self-forgiveness, could help him open up and expand his heart to allow more good to come in. Right now his heart is it's constricted and closed, and he's trying to hold on so that he doesn't, so he can sort of stay frozen and not do anything bad. But I told him, were he to open his heart, for himself, with self-forgiveness, and then for the world and the gifts of the world, it could completely transform him. So at first he didn't understand that. And after telling him in a few different ways, it took about 10 or 15 minutes, you could see the light bulb go on. You could see that he could really grasp it. I had to explain it a few different ways before it really made sense. And when I talked about opening his heart and being open to new experiences and gifts, he started to see, yeah, I could be open. And he was so grateful. He was so grateful. And he said, Tricia, he said, you have no idea what your being here and explaining that has done for me. He said, just know you have changed a life. He was so sincere. He was so sweet. Oh my God. It was hard not to love these guys. They were just the beauty of honesty and vulnerability is so profound. It's so profound. And so many of these guys were so honest and really vulnerable. It was clear from the beginning, they're not to try to, get our information or do anything, and vice versa. And everything we were doing was in the context of the program. So I didn't feel like I was being hustled or conned or anything. It was really, they were very sincere. It was really sweet. And Kat engenders that through the exercise that she does. So that lesson about self-forgiveness, though, was so powerful, because we all need that. In what ways are we beating on ourselves, thinking that somehow it's serving a purpose, right? How is our beating on ourselves, replaying things that we've done that we feel bad about, how is that keeping us stuck? How is that keeping our heart closed? How is that keeping us from experiencing more good in our lives and opening our hearts to good, and to God's love? And so I just really ask you to just examine that. Where in your life are you beating yourself up? Because I know you are, and this man was, and so many of the men in the prison were, just so unable to forgive themselves for what they'd done, and, the ways that they'd ruined lives, and in what ways are you holding on to your own sins, the things that you feel bad about, and not letting them go, not going through a process of healing so you can let them go and open your heart. The last thing I'll talk about is my self-care during this time, because there were lessons there for me as well. In the email before I got there, it said, lunch would be served. And so I'm like, okay, lunch, I'm going to eat slop, like prison slop, there's probably some veggies in there or whatever. So I didn't worry too much about it. I did have a backup plan, but I left it in the car. And I thought, well, if I need it, it's there. Well, here we are in lockdown, and we're getting, in the midst of this program, and the lunch that they were serving us was pizza. Okay. So so they ordered pizzas out. They ordered 46 pizzas from, Little Caesars. Okay. And when I learned that pizza was coming and that's all we were getting, that's not going to work for me. And so I was like, shit, like, what do I do? This is not cool. I'm here all day long. I mean, it was literally, we were there from 8 to about 5:30. And I thought, I don't want to eat pizza. Generally don't eat flour, and dairy doesn't work for me. So I don't eat cheese. And that's kind of pretty much what pizza is. So what I did is I went straight to one of the people who runs the program, pulled him aside, and I said, hey, is there a way that I could get to my car? Because I have another option. I can't eat pizza. Is there another option? And he said, no, you can't leave here, because we had to get badges. We had to sign in, go through security, all this stuff. So running out to my car was not an option, just like it's not for the prison guys. So he said, but I do have avocados. Can you eat avocados? Of all things. I said, yeah, avocados I can do. Like, all I needed was nourishment. I'm like, I can eat some avocados, and that'll, some good fat, some good nutrients, and that'll get me by. And so I said, yes. And he said, I also have gluten-free bread. And I said, great, sign me up. Because he and a couple other people were having that. So he said, just keep it under wraps, because I don't want other people asking me about this. So, I have to say, I was so happy that I advocated for myself, and I didn't just say, oh, well, I'm stuck, I'm going to eat pizza, because, not that the sky would fall if I eat pizza, but I don't eat pizza. Pizza is a yummy, yummy food. I've eaten whole pizzas many times in my life, many times, especially in high school. I went to boarding school, and we would do pizza runs, and I'd eat a whole pizza, a whole pepperoni pizza. So I don't like to eat pizza or things that, are so good that I want more. Like, that doesn't work for me. I want to get the taste for pizza. I don't want to crave pizza at some other time. And I won't crave it if I haven't eaten it, generally speaking. So I was so glad that I advocated for myself. And that's what I always encourage my clients to do is, don't just use it as an excuse to just give in and give up. Okay. Like, there are options. And, had they not had something, I might have even, gone without and just had a larger dinner. I don't know. I mean, that wouldn't have been preferable, because we were putting out a lot of energy. It took a lot of energy to do what we were doing, plus all the dancing. So thankfully, I had gluten-free bread with avocado. I had two pieces of bread with avocado smeared all across, big chunks of avocado. It's an avocado sandwich, essentially, 2 sides. And it was delicious. And I would not normally eat gluten-free bread because I don't eat grains typically, but this is, a concession I felt fine about making, and it was fine, and wouldn't make it a regular habit of it, because the bread was pretty darn good, and I could definitely get a craving for that if I ate it more. I didn't want to get hooked on bread, but not eating bread has served me very well, because I don't crave it anymore, and I don't need to eat it when I go to a restaurant and it's being served. I find it's easier to maintain my weight if I'm not eating bread and grains and that kind of thing. So, but in this case, I needed the nourishment, and it was fine. And I'm just so grateful I had that as an option. But the lesson here is going to any lengths for myself, and again, I was limited in what I would be able to scrounge up, but trying, doing my best, going all the way as far as I could go, has served me so well when it comes to getting my needs met. Where in your life can you advocate for yourself, especially around your food needs? Are you taking precautions? Are you bringing a backup plan? Most people aren't going to be prohibited from going to their car and getting up their backup plan. So are you getting a backup plan when you're going to an event or something where you think you'll be okay, but you're not sure what's actually going to be served? Having a backup plan is super helpful. Are you going to any lengths to take care of yourself and make sure you get your needs met? Are you speaking up for yourself? by going to the host or going to the, whoever it is running the program and saying, I have special food needs. How can you help? How can you accommodate my needs? Speaking for ourselves is not something emotional eaters are good at doing. We just shrug and say, oh, well, and we just go with, whatever's being served, and then hate ourselves later or end up binging later. So, are you standing up for yourself? Are you speaking up for yourself? Are you advocating for yourself? So, so important. So it was a good lesson for me. Thank God they had something that could help me out. Also, everybody went out after the program, went out to dinner and to a place and probably drank a lot of beer. I opted to not go out with them. I so wanted to. On the one hand, I'm like half extrovert and half introvert. So I like being around people and putting out a lot of energy around socialness, but then I need to go and restore, and balance myself. And so I put out so much during the day. And because I had another day coming the following day, I said, I'm going to pass for going out. And then I just spent a nice evening, having a good dinner and taking care of myself, getting rest. And so, again, advocating for my needs and knowing what I need and making a decision for myself instead of just doing everything everybody's doing. I said, no, that's, I'll miss out on that and I'll take care of myself and I'll be glad for it the next day. So the lessons I learned, and the reason why I'm bringing this all to you is that, first of all, new experiences are wonderful. I encourage you to really, really stretch yourself and get out of your comfort zone and get uncomfortable. It was so uncomfortable for me to drive into Northern California, to an area I'd never been to, is outside of Reno, is in California, but close to Reno, Nevada. And this was a very new experience, very uncomfortable at first, but it felt so good to stretch myself. So where are you stretching yourself? And the next lesson of really seeing other people, seeing the goodness in people and really reflecting that back to people, not judging people by their worst moments, giving people a second chance, finding forgiveness in my heart for other people. And in so doing, really finding forgiveness for myself, realizing that the times that I've made bad choices, it's because of fear, definitely because of fear. So that was an important lesson. Also, just really realizing we're all children of God. We're all children of God and we deserve forgiveness and we deserve second chances. The self-care experience was so powerful for me, and lastly, giving love, helped me, loving on these guys, giving love helped me heal and love myself. And it also helped me recognize my capacity for love, and loving is greater than I often think. Like sometimes if somebody needs something from me, I just think, oh my God, I can't possibly give to another person. And I'm sure you feel that way. Emotional eaters are givers. Okay. So there's a fine line between over giving and people pleasing and not taking care of ourselves and giving. And so I find when we're giving from a full well, meaning I've done my meditation, I've done my prayer, I've done my walk, pray, and I've done my inner work of clearing out the garbage, clearing out the guilt and the remorse and the fear and all those things I feel bad about, so God can move through me. When I give to others from a full well of God moving through me because my cup is full, then there's an inexhaustible resource of love I can give. When it comes from God, it's inexhaustible. When it comes from me and it comes from ego, because I want to pat myself up on the back for being so good, I want validation, I want atta-girls, then that's exhaustible. I can burn out from that. Father Boyle is somebody who runs Homeboy Industries, which is for gang members to get them off the streets. And he said that so many therapists say, how do you avoid burnout? And he said, I believe if you're coming from the right place, if you're not making it about you, there doesn't have to be burnout. When it's about you and you're trying to change people or you're trying to, be a do-gooder or whatever, then that's ego and that's where you burn out. So I thought that was a really important distinction. So I appreciate your listening. I appreciate your being here to witness the journey I've been on. If this interests you in any way, If this inspires you, please reach out to me, because there's an opportunity to go back later this year, and I would just love to have you join me. My goal is to have 10 friends come with me and experience this, because they need more volunteers. They need money. They're operating on a shoestring. So if you want to give, you just feel inspired to give, let me know, and I can hook you up with where you can give to this program. But even more than the money, they also need bodies. Okay, they need people and hearts to show up and give to these guys, listen to them, witness them, assist them in their job skills and that kind of thing. So let me know if it inspires you. It's the coolest thing in the world. It's so fun. Kat is such a cool cat. She is a cool cat, and she makes it really fun. So I just had a blast, and I didn't expect that. So stay open to surprises. Stay open to surprises. And new experiences is really what my message is here today, as well as giving people second chances and loving others so we can love ourselves. So thank you guys so much. And the next show will be recorded live here, and I'll announce that. But thanks for showing up. And please encourage other people to be a part of the secret sauce. If they struggle with food and weight, they need to be here. They need to know that there's a new way of overcoming their struggles with food and weight. So thank you so much, and I'll see you next time. Take care.
If you enjoyed this podcast and want to get free support, insider health info, exclusive invites to events, and more, visit healyourhunger.com.